So, welcome to People of the Land, which seeks to provide an opportunity for those who have served and are serving in the land of Israel to share with a world desperate for relationship. This way we can hear their personal stories and their experiences. In Jeremiah 31:1, we read that at the time, declares the Lord, I will be the God of all the family of Israel, and they shall be my people. And I have with me today one wonderful person who I recently met and was invited into her family's home, Rivka Katzer Sims. Did I do okay with that?
You sure
Okay.
did.
Rivka is an amazing, amazing dweller in Israel and has a story to share. And because it's such a vast story, I am not going to be wordy myself. I'm just going to kind of jump in here and I'm going to ask you, Rivka, a question and or actually make a statement with a question. I'd like you to share your story. What are your origins and what is your connection to the land and the people of Israel?
Okay, I was born in 1962 at a kibbutz in the Jezreel Valley. My parents were Zionists. I'm the fifth generation from my mom's side in Israel. She was born in Jerusalem, and my dad came from Poland in 1927. And
Explain the word for our audience because some may not be familiar with it. Zionist.
Zionists are people who love Israel, love the land, want to build Israel and to build the land, to work and establish the land. And Israel was established in 1948, and at the time they needed all the hands that are possible to help Israel be established. And so they established kibbutzes all around Israel, mostly in the borders, and my parents were a part of it.
Okay, thank you. And of course you came into the land. You were born there and
Yeah.
just immediately fell in love with God, right?
No,
No,
totally not.
no, I don't
I-
understand. Can you explain that to me?
sure. I grew up as an atheist. Most kibbutzim are atheists. In most kibbutzim, people don't believe in the existence of God, as it was in my kibbutz. Our religion was Zionism, to work the land, to do hard work in the fields. But as Jews, we had to study the Bible, the Old Testament, from second grade on through 12th grade. And it was fine when I was in grade school, but when I went to middle school, I started asking questions. Why should we study the Bible if there's no God? And I wanted to know, does God exist or does he not? And at first, I wanted to test God to see if he really does exist. Now, as Jews, we're not supposed to pronounce the personal holy name of God, Yehovah. So here I was, 13 years old, and never actually pronounced it. When I read Yud Hey Vav Hey in my eyes, I actually said Adonai. So I was in my school and I said, Yehovah, expecting something in nature to happen. Nothing happened. So I said it a little louder, Yehovah, and still nothing happened. So I said, Yehovah, 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 Yehovah. Waiting for something in nature to happen, maybe a little gush of wind or
A lightning strike or
something like that. But there was nothing, not even a bird. So I concluded that God does not exist. But then after a few weeks, I thought this was not a good way to test whether God exists or not, because maybe it doesn't bother him that I say his name. So there's got to be another way to test whether God existed or not. So one day I said to God, I don't believe you exist. But if you do, by any chance, please reveal yourself to me, and I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to read the Old Testament again from cover to cover. So one day I started in Genesis, and about a year later I got to Second Chronicles, because that's the last book in the order of books in the Hebrew Bible. When I got to the end, I decided that God existed. It was like an intellectual decision. For one thing, the story of creation seemed more reasonable than the story of evolution. It was just as simple as that. But then I saw how God took for himself a people through Abraham, and promised him a land and descendants and blessings. And now, some 4,000 years after that promise, we have our own independent country, despite of the numerous attempts to annihilate the Jewish people, starting from Pharaoh to Nebuchadnezzar to the Greeks, the Romans, the Inquisition, the Arabs, the Holocaust, you name it. Everybody and their brother want to annihilate us. Now we have our own country. So for this reason alone, I started to believe in the existence of God. And I was very happy about that.
Well, and so now you're, oh boy, I hope I don't offend anyone. You're a good Jew.
A good Jew is all in under whose perspective? Not from my family's perspective. So
Okay.
first of all, my family didn't even know that I started to believe in God. I was so embarrassed to share this with them, because people in my kibbutz just don't believe in God. Um, but I was looking for something to fill my belief in God. I thought, okay, now that I believe that He exists, now what? So, because I'm Jewish, I decided to explore Judaism. So I went on my Pesach vacation, my Passover vacation, 2 weeks, to Tzfat, a northern city. Went to a yeshiva. You know what a yeshiva is?
A place to study, a place to be alone, to
A place for religious people to
religious people.
explore going back to Judaism.
Right,
And
right.
the yeshiva that I went to was a Chabad yeshiva, very, very ultra Orthodox. And thinking that maybe I should become a religious Jew. And all I could find there was a lot of do's and don'ts that did not appeal to a 15-year-old girl who grew up in the kibbutz, where borders are very loose. You know, you can do whatever you want to do as long as it makes you happy, as long as you don't hurt anyone else or yourself. Life is there for the taking. And all of a sudden, I was placed in such a strict society, and I felt like I was in prison. So I decided that Orthodox Judaism was not for me. Came back to the kibbutz, but I was searching for something spiritual, which I didn't know what I was searching for. Now, in my kibbutz, there were many volunteers from all over the world. In the 60s and 70s and 80s, it was very popular. People from all over the world would come to my kibbutz, or many kibbutzes, and they would work. They would come for 6 months. They would work and study Hebrew and mingle with us, the teenagers. So one of the guys offered to take me to his meditation sessions, like a Hare Krishna type of center, yeah, in nearby my kibbutz. And I went to some of these sessions, and we did those meditation, you know, you say those mantras over and over again, and you try to open and empty your mind from anything. but what do you fill it with? And it seemed to me that this religion was very empty. So I was looking for something to fill my life with. Now, at the time, I was working at the factory. All the teenagers in the kibbutz had to work once a week, one day, somewhere in the kibbutz, and my job was in the factory. And with me worked an American guy who was a volunteer there. And I noticed that he was very different from everyone else. He was, first of all, a very kind person, very happy all the time. And there was a certain peace about him that made me jealous. He would go around the kibbutz doing good things like weeding people's gardens or doing stuff for them that they needed. For example, my mom made sculptures.
Mm-hmm.
So all on his own, he went to the carpentry shop and made her tent stands so that she could put her sculptures on. And he would do it for other people too. So one day, I asked him, Leo, his name was, why are you so different? And so he told me that he believed in God. And I said, oh, we have something in common. Nobody else around here believes in God, but I do. And he said, maybe your belief in God is an intellectual belief. Mine is in my heart. And I said, okay, I know some religious people who believe in God with all their heart, but they're not different like you. By and by, after many times of talking, I learned that he was different because he believed in the Messiah. And I said, Messiah? I wish he had come, then there would be no wars.
Hold that
So,
thought.
what?
Again, hold that thought for a second. Help the audience understand what you mean by Messiah.
Okay. In the Jewish mind, Messiah, Mashiach, is the person who would come to bring peace on earth, to take away death, to take away wars. And that was what I was taught the Messiah would bring. So here we are in 1970 something, 75, 76, 3 years after the 73 Yom Kippur War,
Right.
which was very much a part of my life. I mean, I wasn't a soldier then, but I knew about all the wars. And how could you say the Messiah came and you believe in him if there's no peace on earth? So
And
I
so
asked him
he
further.
found a Messiah.
He found the Messiah.
Okay.
Now, eventually, I found out that his Messiah, what he says his Messiah was Yeshua, Jesus. When he said Yeshua, I didn't really know who he meant. I said, do you mean Yeshu? Because people don't recognize Yeshua as the Messiah. They would say Jesus or Yeshu. Yeshu is an acronym uh, that stands for his name will be blotted out forever. That was created many, many years ago by some rabbis. But when people say Yeshu, they're not aware of the fact that they're actually saying those acronyms. So this name was hijacked by modern Israel. When you read in Wikipedia about Jesus, it's translated to Hebrew as Yeshu. Anyway, when I learned that Leo believed in Yeshua or Jesus, I thought, this is terrible. How could such an intelligent man who went to university for 6 years in England would believe in something so absurd that the Almighty God, which now I believe in, would reduce himself to becoming a man? This is blasphemy. And how could such a man with a golden heart would believe in somebody in whose name so much blood was shed, especially Jewish blood? So I thought, this is further from the truth. And I felt bad for him, for Leo, and I decided to try to show him that he's wrong. So from then on, we argued every time we got together, whether at work or in the pool on Shabbat. We would argue whether his belief is right or wrong. And his knowledge was so vast compared to my little knowledge that I knew. And I would say things like, you say that God is love. How come Yeshua said, I've come to set a sword between mother and daughter and father and son? See, it contradicts itself. It can't be true. You shouldn't believe in this. Somehow, every time we argued, he won the argument. And after months of arguing like this, I decided that I'm just wasting my time. This guy is never going to stop believing in what he believes. And plus, he tells me that this faith of his gives him peace and joy and purpose for his life. And those were things that I was looking for. So I decided to abandon my crusade to make him stop believing. And for a while, we didn't speak hardly at all, just hi, how you doing? Now I'm jumping ahead to my last year of high school. And instead of a Bible exam, remember we had to study the Bible from second grade on to 12th grade. Instead of an exam, we had to write a paper for Bible class. And the subject of the paper was, who is the suffering servant of Isaiah 53? So I came to Leo and I asked him if he could help me write the paper because he knew the Bible better than me. And he was very happy and he told me the two views. The Jewish interpretation of Isaiah 53 is that the suffering servant is Israel, suffering because of the sins of the Gentiles. Point in case, Nebuchadnezzar taking Israel or Judah into captivity, the Jews suffer under his hand. The Jews suffer in the Holocaust. They went like a lamb to the slaughter. And then he told me the other interpretation, which he called the Christian interpretation, which was the suffering servant is the Messiah from the Jewish people, suffering because of the sins of the Jewish people and the rest of the world. So I wanted to be different than the rest of my peers, and I decided to write his view. I turned in the paper, and my teacher asked me, where did you get this view? And I said, well, one of the volunteers in my kibbutz, he helped me write the paper. And she said, if he has this view, he must be a Christian. And let me tell you what Christians are all about. They want to convert you from being Jewish to being Christian. That's their whole purpose in life. And they make for themselves like point in heaven, 1 point, 2 points, every time they convert a person, especially a Jewish person. And then she said, let me tell you about missionaries. They go to third world countries and they give those unlearned people food and medicine and clothing. And in return, those unlearned people give them their souls. And missionaries make lots of points for themselves in heaven. So be careful. He might be a secret missionary. So I came to Leo and I said, this and that says my teacher. And I don't know if you've been trying to convert me or something. But I'm Jewish. I can't believe in Jesus. This is for Gentiles, it's not for Jews. And how come every time we talk about anything in life, somehow our conversation is veered towards spiritual things? What is it? You're trying to convert me? How about we don't talk at all about anything because I'm afraid you're going to convert me. So goodbye, Leo. And he said, okay, goodbye, but please let me say two last things, if I may. And he said, first, I want you to remember that you are the one who always led our conversations about spiritual things. He said, I never tried to convince you or lead you in the direction of talking about spiritual things. And then he says, I take my faith from your Old Testament. And I said, really? I said, he says, yeah. He said, if you show it to me, I'll believe you. Thinking, here is my ace card. I always wanted to prove him wrong. There is no way that he would show me from my Bible that Jesus or Yeshua is in my Bible. If that is true, why not all the Jews believe in this? So I said, okay, show me, I'll take your challenge, and thinking to convert him away from Christianity.
I'll show
So,
you.
so instead of don't you talk to me about anything, he says to me, now we're going to have a set time to talk about it. Come to my house every Monday night at 8 o'clock, and we're going to study the Bible, the Old Testament prophecies, and how they are fulfilled in the New Testament. We're going to study messianic prophecies and seeing how they are fulfilled in the New Testament. Talk about God's sense of humor, So every Monday night we met. There were three of us together. Another guy, Russian guy by the name of Eliyahu, was also interested in Leo's faith. And we studied many, many messianic prophecies and seeing how they're fulfilled in the New Testament. Many of the prophecies just went over my head. I did not get it. But three really spoke to my heart. The first one was from Jeremiah 31, verse 31, where God says in the Bible that God will make a new covenant with his people. And the word covenant is the same word that we use for New Testament, Brit Chadashah. So I thought, wow, how interesting that the Brit Chadashah, New Testament, is mentioned in my Old Testament. I never noticed it. I read most of the Old Testament. Then the second prophecy was from Daniel 9, verse 26. Studying the whole chapter, I understood that the Messiah would have to come and die before the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD. So there were several false messiahs in Jewish history, in whom Jesus was the first. So if he were to be the right one, at least he came at the right time, according to Daniel.
Right.
And the third prophecy was Isaiah 53. We studied it verse by verse, word by word, and I understood from the text and from the grammar that it could not be the Jewish people dying for the sins of the Jewish people or dying as a sacrifice for the sins of the Gentiles. It could not. It had to be one male person, blameless, from the Jewish people, from Isaiah's people, suffering to take away their sins, the Jewish people and the rest of the world. When we finished Isaiah 53, I said, oh, Leo, I feel like I'm being drawn to this. I feel like this might be the truth. But as a Jew, I can't believe in this. And so I got scared. And I said, let's stop our Bible studies. And we did. We didn't study anymore after that. A few months later, his parents came to visit. They were missionaries in Africa. And what I thought about missionaries or what I was told about missionaries. So at first I kind of gave them the cold shoulder, but pretty soon I befriended them and I saw how lovely those people are. And I thought to myself, boy, those people might not be Christians and certainly not missionaries because they're so nice. So one day when I came to visit, there I saw his mother, Gloria, typing a letter that Leo wrote to a Jewish American girl that was interested in his faith. She asked him two questions, this girl, Deborah. If a man believes in God, why do you need Jesus as a mediator? And the second question was, if a Jew tries to keep the Mosaic law to the best of his ability, why can't he be saved? So Leo answered those two questions in a 17-page paper, and his mom,
Oh, we
Gloria,
don't have time. No, but yeah, I get it. I get it.
his mom, Gloria, was typing it for him for herself because she wanted a copy of it.
Right, right.
Right then, I came in and I was interested more in a gossip of what's happening between Leo and Deborah rather than the answers. But there was no personal issue there at all. But as we read it over 3 days, I realized two things. First, Jesus was a Jew. Not that I didn't know it before. I knew that Jesus was a Jew, but it was the light came on. And all the early believers were Jews, and all the writers of the New Testament were Jews, and except maybe one.
Maybe one.
And the roots of the Gospels are so Jewish. You know, it's in the Old Testament. And if that is true, why can't I, as a Jew, believe in this? So I was able to get over the stumbling block of me being a Jew. And then Leo made the analysis between the Passover lamb and Jesus. And just like the blood of the Passover lamb, the first Passover, on the doorposts of the people's home, covered the people from being under the judgment of God so that the firstborn would not die. So the blood of Yeshua, in a spiritual way, over our heart, would cover us from being under the judgment of God. And so I gave my life to the Lord on the 17th of May, 1980. And from then, my life was changed, but that's another story.
And we might have to go to Rivka part 2 for that. But
Maybe.
okay. And I know I shared this with you a little bit when we were sitting down at your table. By the way, this woman of God serves a wonderful table. We were there for Shabbat, and it was just beautiful. But the reason I was so struck by your explanation is your story is very, very much very close to my story. And I think our story, yours and mine, is very, very close to a lot of people's story. And that's the way God works. That sharing. So I just really want to thank you for such a beautiful testimony, and for not trying to convert me. I really appreciate it. It was just sharing, right?
Yeah.
But I we will have to talk much more about this. You didn't leave any questions to ask, by the way, so I won't, but I will share that I might come back. Other people may have interest in learning more about you, as
Sure.
I do, and I just want to thank you. Tov Meod, excuse me, Tov Meod.
You're
You,
welcome. And I give the glory to God for what He's done in my life.
uh, okay, I'll go with that. Yes, absolutely. And for anyone who has questions or interest or anything, please contact me. I put my information out on the ends of these podcasts, so that people will know that there's a way. But you can reach me at Mark C, MARKC Writes, WRITES, at gmail.com. In the meantime, I'm going to, don't go away, by the way, Rivka, but I'm going to stop the recording and wish you all shalom. And I hope these words spoke to you as much as they spoke to me. Blessings to all.